exercise in creative freedom for any artist or art is a responsibility of attending to matters of social inequalities and carefully tackling impulses that may have the tendency to abide by existing hierarchies or burst creative ones. This is what I propose as my central argument, and we shall discuss it as follows. The recent protests against the sexual charges levied on the students of Jawaharlal University in connection to their participation in an event titled Country Without a Post Office became an abode of art and performance. It brought forth creative ways of showing resistance by the protesters. For the purpose of our discussion, I have zeroed down on 3 performatives that emerged in the protest performance, the performatives that stood out for me in the ways they made visible the role of politics in inspiring and structuring aesthetics. Now, let me first explain what I mean by performatives. A performative for me means language, gesture, or any form of symbolic social style. The term has been most notably employed by speech actors like J.L. Austin, for whom an utterance becomes performative when one locates it in a total speech situation and understands how it happened. The first performative that I choose here is students' act of sloganeering. For me, sloganeering formed the fulcrum of the protest. It gripped the protest ermine together like a thread that prevailed throughout and made it as consolidated in history as it is today. With reference to Austin's theory, it had a ceremonial utterance, owing to which it inspired a very significant aesthetic in the protest performance. That was the aesthetic of togetherness, wherein each time a chorus emerged, it emerged with a theme of being together, dissolving as it did the distinction between the center and the margin. Before I further discuss the disabling of the center-margin distinction as one of the important qualities of the protest, I will already bring in another performative that I want to reflect on, which is Maya Rao. Let's do it. The second aspect is the stairs, which lend a sense of criminality to the space and the character of the walk. Due to the in-between stature of the stairs, the center margin violently would further find a magnificent rupture in the gap. The walk that had emerged as Maya's anguish against the Nirbhaya rape case of 2012 and acquired another dimension at the moment of Supreme Court's revalidation of Section 377 in 2013, now had reached a point where it performed the same function as the stairs, that was connecting. Her improvised text intended the connections across a series of socio-political issues that Maya had been investing herself into all this time. I would like to say that it made the protest aware of its multi-movabilityness. Each issue that she pointed out was a fold that, in Gilles Deleuze's words, would refer to other folds, and like the fold of clothing, each had its own autonomy and purpose. And we know that the folds did reveal themselves when later we saw various movements across the country joining hands with Canadian protest. The third very crucial aspect of the walk is the body. It was due to the true embodiment of the text, that is, that Maya's boiling anguish, which is embedded in the text, got communicated. The embodiment was made possible only by what I have already pointed out, the daily living of the issues that she spoke of. This body had an identity of a feminist activist, to say the least, about its coherent and extremely reassuring presence in the performance of the protest. I remember how this body, as it entered the space, exhibited a strong wind-like quality, and with its gush of its stepping in, embodied as if both the arrival and the spread of the protest. Talking about the body takes me back to reflect upon the slogan of the protest. The gesture of raising the fists in the air, as was performed by these bodies, very strongly concretized the protest into a form. The image that those bodies together created is enough to memorialize the protest in our minds. The joyous, motivating, strengthening, overwhelming experience that this gesture could generate for both its performing and spectating body was something that a body that was present in those moments will always remember. Though it must be pointed out that such is the thrust already embedded in the physicality of this gesture that it cannot be just simply performed, it has to be commanded. And in my opinion, that only deep engagement with the protest could make possible. It was only after physically internalizing the protest agitation that one would have the ability to roar a slogan and raise the fist. The performative which then emerged from the union of the text of the students, such as AZADI and Halla Bol, and the fist-raising gesture could immediately stimulate a sense of unity. Once when I was in conversation with Professor Urmimala and she was trying to explain me how the body came into play during the protest, she remembered a very beautiful moment from Pilchi Jones' documentary on his work called Still Here. It's a moment when during his workshop with people who were suffering from deadly illness like cancer, Jones asked the participants to come up with one gesture that could sum up their lives. And this one participant, she rolled her hand in the air like this, and she said it means stir it. Whatever is up there, stir it. For me, to remind one of such a poignant physical moment from one's own history of experiences, as it did for Professor Sarkar, is undoubtedly suggestive of the affective strength of the fist-raising and storytelling which was lent to the protest. Apart from these two, another performative that emerged as a strong embodiment of the protest was an improvised solo danced by a student called Anisha Gaba. I'm really sorry, I would love to show it to you, but it's on internet and we don't have internet here exactly. But I can tell you that it was around the same stairs where Maya was performing. She danced there. It was improvised, and she then later gave an interview to NTV where she said that she got her to dance because she was feeling the protest in her body, and this was her way to defend the space. Like people say poetry, they will lecture, but she wanted to dance. That was it. I mean, I can give you the link and you can get it. Tawab's formless dancing amidst a massive gathering of protesters was no short of one of the most courageous demonstrations of protest. While it had no text like the walk or the slogans, it was laden with meanings. I would say it was a dense textuality of the space that could avail and energize such an abstraction. Without words, this dance strongly expressed Halla Bol, and being at an intimate distance from the audience, exhibited the same force of unleashing the body free as did Maya's walk, thus emerging as a strong performative of resistance. As an act of individual assertion, Kawak's dance unfolded for me another very important aspect of the protest, that is its precariousness, and how it had empowered the protesters at a personal level and not just collectively. As she said in the interview that it was her way to defend this case, I feel dancing to defend in this case becomes important for how it made the claims visible in the body and strengthened the emotionality of the protest. In the ways that these three performatives displayed an interplay of words and movement, each playing its part perfectly, for me, tied the act of the protest together and contributed to its readability and impact. Kawak's dance brought out the embedded aspiration of the protest, which was freedom and empowerment of each of its actors. Maya's walk graciously underlined the element of diversity playing those actors, while the sloganeering brought the actors together, enlightening the unifying spirit of the protest. All three reflected saying and moving at the same time, and carried in them mixed emotions of thrill, pride, anger, defeat, victory. Each contributed to a disabling of center and margin in their own ways, telling us of the sloganeering by finding its ritualistic presence anywhere and everywhere, Maya's walk by telling us of the multi-pose of the protest, with walking but never reaching, and Kawak's dance by suggesting that there was no single hero, but there must have been, just like herself, many unsung heroes that the protest must have conceived. This disabling of the center-margin binary is significant to me in the way that Andrew Giffen and Marsha Peck regard it as characteristic to a kind of creativity that confronts and opposes common sense. It is aesthetically and politically important because it challenges the expressions which are born out of an affirmative normative culture. Having said this, what is special about the performativity that emerged in the Jain protest was how it exhibited an ability to question simplistic thought. These three performatives, for instance, were critical, yet comprehensible for a majority of people. In my opinion, this translates into a fine balance they could strike between anti-intellectualism and non-populism. In other words, Jain protest performance, despite originating in a highly acclaimed academic institution, indeed spoke in the language of the people. The way it understood dissent and emphasized the varied interests and opinions of the people, it managed to rupture the thought in which non-populism and anti-populism are not differentiated. It was about communicating and being communicative, and that is how it could perform a strong wedlock of bodies and thought. And it must be said that while the bodies, raising slogans or walking and dancing, were overtly performing, the politics that had charged the protest spaces overall made the mere presence of any protester's body extremely meaningful and performative. Going back to where I began, I want to argue that it was because of the clarity and integrity of its politics, that is, politics of justice, that JNU protest performance could exhibit an aesthetic unity of body, thought, and space. And it is because of this unity in its process of creating and performing, it could actually subvert and achieve what art was always known to, a dismantling of central margin binary. Being a student of art dance performance, for me, JNU protest turned out to be a rich laboratory where I could witness sensables, that is, what affects and what does not, being questioned. A demand for dissent, so we can save ourselves from the violence of sameness, was at the center of creative activism, as much as it lies at the base of any artist's motivation to create art. And as I would see performances, lectures, and all other activities constantly engaged in negotiating with terms and conditions of freedom, I would realize how important it is for an artist to keep challenging terms and meanings of creativity, so that what we have always understood as the purpose of art, that is community building, rupturing of hierarchies, and raising hope for a better tomorrow, are not lost. Thank you.
That I will not make like a kind of argument and that conceptualization in that sense, but I will take more time in discussion because I don't know exactly that what you would like to hear. because many times our exchange depends on like the kind of audience you are, what you are interested in. So I would say this is not a great paper in that sense. I'm just sharing some of the experiences. Definitely we all were students, teachers, all were part of that moment. And it generated very, I would say, very theatricalized moment in that sense, that we have all witnessed different kinds of rupture many times. And I think that almost for like 2 years when this new regime has come, so it was always a kind of like a university across India have been witnessing these kinds of like almost all the universities, I would say, from it has started from FTII, after that of course like SCU, we have other universities. So we have been completely on the boil. But I think boil is the condition, this is not like it looks quite like, it's kind of we were doing something impossible. It's like we were witnessing something new. But I think if you are thinking through the whole idea of the dissensus, whole idea of the dissent, then I think this is the whole idea. What I would like to frame as a university or any university, and particularly the way we are placed in the kinds of third world country and the kind of politics, I think dissent is the idea through which university can affirm its existence. And if university in this particular time is not able to affirm, make that kind of dissensus gesture, then I think that it is losing its own essence, it is losing its own kinds of things. And we witnessed, like definitely of course we have witnessed several moments in jail, many times we have held, many times we have like also saw the moments that we never like imagined in that sense. So, and for many of us, for our generations, for our students who have like now joined with teachers, so I am coming from this liminal background, where like as a student, earlier I was a student, 2 years back I was a student, now as a teacher. So we were witnessing moment, we were witnessing a kind of history. So one is the idea of that affirmation, and second is that definitely you are coming from all, I expect that all are coming from dance background, and I don't have any idea of the dance. But at the same time, I think dance and politics both share some interesting language. And one thing that strikes me about dance is not rhythm, it's not repetition, it's not, I would say, pause, but the strike itself. And when I say a strike, striking like many times you use the term striking the pose. I think it's a quite problematic term. I'm saying I'm using a strike in different sense. I'm saying a strike when you are like completely unearthing your own movement. You are completely destroying your own kinds of formation, whatever you have created. So, for example, I can give like how I can do this strike, and I think how many times we can make larger connection between what is happening in contemporary politics and what is happening in the real world. So, a strike, as vaguely I understood to the contemporary politics, for example, two frames, like we have witnessed like two recent movements, one in Kashmir and one in Pune. And I will say that both have created a kind of a strikes that has stopped the movement. So I want dancers or dance may create kinds of strikes that should stop its own movement many times. To make something new, to emerge as a kind of, to come with a new kinds of vocabulary. For example, in Una, so if you are thinking about this regime, the regime I would not like to name, we all know. So if you are thinking through this regime, then this regime has come through the series of performance. And therefore I am also becoming like quite suspicious of this language of the performance. Because many times we think that performance is a very subversive language, performance is an embodiment. But I see that performance is also becoming quite disembodied language. It does not have any embodiment in that sense. It's just either you are thinking in terms of economy, either you are thinking in terms of slogan, either you are thinking in terms of commitment, and all those kinds of statements that we tend to take very seriously. So it is losing its own kinds of embodiment in that sense and becoming more disembodied kinds of act. So for example, what happened in Gujarat, in Una. So in Gujarat, in Una, you have like people are saying that okay, this is your mother and you do the performance. We are not caring, so this is your mother, and now you do we are not going to perform. So this whole idea that we are not going to perform is something reminds me about this strike, that okay, we are no more going to perform. And if you are thinking about performance in Indian context, then it always reminds me something. I always become very suspicious of this idea of the performance. It reminds me about the market. Market will keep telling you that okay, perform. You have to perform. They have like in university, we have API score. So you have to achieve a certain amount, a certain number of API score. Same, I think recently there was a news, and if it is true, then it is one of the very various news. So now I think Ministry of Culture has come with a kind of API score for artists. So they are going to grade like the mathematics or this artist that okay, how we are going to dance and things. So it is all about creating a kind of performance. Our Prime Minister is asking Minister that you have to performance and you have like performance index. So I think definitely one language is coming from performance studies discipline, and that I think they assume and take performance very as a theoretical language. But if you are thinking about larger society, if you are thinking about larger politics, then I think performance is something that we need to criticize. And I would say that, and therefore I would like to play put in a context in Kashmir. What happens in Kashmir? You have like all these military forces, these are strengthened and things, and like children are coming on the streets, they are not hearing that. So fear has stopped this performance. You just wanted to create a sense of fear for like many years. You wanted to create a sense of fear in Gujarat, but you are not able to create that fear. And that is the fear that has stopped. There you have that strike. I would say you have to strike that fear. So one connection that I can draw from dance, and therefore dance becomes a kind of very interesting kind of like I would say framework for me to think about. And also if you think, so three terms I will say: a strike, idea of the movement. Be it also like used like a lot of political movement, and same way dance is also used like a lot of this movement. So dance, movement and performance, these are the three terms I am taking to discuss some of the components, so like not largely about JNU, but to make someone draw some of the connections that of course concerns JNU, but at the same time it also surpasses this idea of like whatever has happened in JNU. So now this whole idea that how we see like, so one idea I would say that of course this is a strike, and a strike I think is something that I think dancers need to think about, because I think whatever materials, very less materials I have made, it has been so much focus on a space and body. So much focus I will say. It has been like, I will say, over emphasis on a space and body. And I think if you are asking me, I will have my own personal view. I think dance a space, and especially when I am saying dance a space, then I am largely talking about the contemporary idea of the contemporary dance, because contemporary dance is discussing, bringing this whole lot of vocabulary about the space. And I would say there is a obsession many times about this idea of the space. And I think let us also think through the space. I think definitely you have contemporary dance is able to generate a new idea of a space that I recognize, that I many times affirm, that many times celebrate. But at the same time, the space remains quite limited. A space remains limited in the idea of the space. And a space, so what do you mean by a space? And at the same time, through this idea of the space, I would like to make that what has happened in JNU. So what was happening in JNU, what has like how JNU movement has unfolded. So I was like largely I was coming from I'm one of the representative of teachers union. So I'm coming from teacher association. And so when this whole things unfolded, then I could see one day suddenly you see that people like you have like old police vehicles are moving in the campus. It was like very threatening presence, because we have never seen that kinds of presence in like a campus that you have. So we keep hearing that now police is going to girls' bathroom. Now police is going here, now police is moving here. So it was like it created a whole sense of fear. It was everywhere. So it was not just, but we had this kind of like, at least I was thinking through this idea of the cultural capital. JNU has to hold like a cultural capital, and people have larger connections, networks, all these things. And definitely people will come to know, and they will like, we will be able to come out of this like a crisis. But suddenly you keep hearing that now the many people, very senior professors are coming, and they are also very feared, they will very afraid. So sense of fear, like almost like a 24 hours. So students are not able to decide, all their leaders are like, they were not there, and they were not able to take any decisions, same way teachers were not able to take decisions. And I would say this was a kind of interesting momentum that we have witnessed, and we were not able to show that, okay, where to go. Like if you are going to the main gate, then all the kinds of like right-wing forces are there. They are ready to lynch you at the moment you are crossing and claiming that, okay, this is our JNU. So you have this kind of crisis. So the whole idea was that then the things had just started. Students came, teachers came, some staffs came, they all came together, and I started with a kind of procession. So it became a kind of process, started with the procession. We went to the main gate, and by the moment, it has created a kind of moment when you can affirm that, okay, yes, we can do something, we can still like exist despite of all kinds of fear. So that, but again, the presence of fear was so enormous that was not still able to, and like many times we were like, so when like things went to court, then many times we were witnessing that, okay, now definitely we are emerging out of this situation. But at the same time, suddenly the moment will come, then you are losing the whole moment. So it was always like a winning and losing condition, and you are never any time you get sure that, okay, things will not come. Suddenly one day in the afternoon, so I was just discussing with one of my friends, and she said, so I got a call, then you can say that it must be police, and seriously by police. So police calling me that, okay, do you know one of your students is participating in this thing, do you know this person? And despite that, one of the reasons was that the student is a Muslim, so of course like if you are Muslim and if you are participating in a certain kind of dissensus kinds of politics, then you are becomes a kind of comes under multiple attack. So suddenly they like he was like very rough, very abusive language. He started, okay, so you know how you know this person? So he is simply my student. How do I not know our student? No, but you have called her, like you have called him many times. So what? But again, I can see that from my own experience, I can see that it took me like 5 minutes to get out of that fear that okay, yes, he is my student and yes, he participated in the things. But now it's making the code. So why you are like calling me and why you are asking me what you want to know? So but I'm just sharing some of the momentum that was really kinds of momentum where you are not sure. It was an uncertain moment, and I think this is the also uncertain moment many times, which connects many times to our democratic kinds of like a democratic process and artistic process together, that many times you go through the many times of nervousness, this whole situation. But again, the things unfolded that you were also not sure, and the other side was also not very much sure. The second category that I feel is quite important is the idea of the movement. Idea of the movement, and if I am correct, then I think Romancier in some writing has used two terms, two very interesting terms. And he using two interesting terms, he is using one is choreo-police and one is choreo-politics. So when he is using choreo-police, then now like if you go to participate in any protest in Delhi in recent like 3-4 years, then you will see that police is leading you. So police will decide your space, that okay, where you can protest, what time you can protest, and what time you should finish that things. So choreo-police, your movement is getting decided by police in that sense. So if you are going to Jantar Mantar, okay, you will get the kind of things like there was a rape case in Haryana, and I suddenly saw that there was a huge anger, a lot of anger among the participants, and they were all like walking towards like, okay, we are going to break that barracks and things, and we are just moving. And suddenly I realized, oh my God, police is leading us. It is police is leading us. So I'm saying that how that even like we many times make this idea of the dissensus so romanticized. Many times we feel that okay, we have this all the kinds of very kinds of freer space. So what is this space? I'm bringing this space, the space I'm discussing there, that to here for your discussion in dance. That many times within a space you are able to make this sense of freedom. But I'm saying that maybe your sense of freedom, sense of a space is very much choreo-polished. So how like a choreo-police is decided? But one interesting idea is that choreo-politics. So how choreo-politics, and therefore I will say that in JNU largely protest happened in the framework of choreo-police. Many times, definitely when it was started, but later it was like, and I will come to this debate that how it unfolded and how many times we also failed in many contexts. So, for example, so choreo-politics, when I am bringing choreo-politics, so Una I will see as a choreo-politics, example of choreo-politics, when police and things are not going to decide your movement. You are also surprising the police. So like first day, if you remember like Una police have read the news, then what happened that people are going with their katasis and they are dumping on the DM's office. So like police were taken completely in the surprise, and you have many movements are happening in this country where you can find some kinds of like I would say, some kinds of characteristics of this choreo-politics, and I think we need to learn a lot from this idea of the choreo-politics. Otherwise, within our space, within our sense of freedom and all these things, many times we are also keep limiting our notion of the freedom. Because freedom cannot curtail. Freedom has always to surpass something. Any freedom is not going to surpass into what freedom exactly means. So, and I think that we need to, and therefore we need to make a line. I will say definitely, if I think to the civil society, then civil society movement is largely now is choreo-polished. But I think there should be a dialogue between choreo-polished. I cannot completely discard this idea of the choreo-politics, because definitely if you have a regimented regime and things, then it also says a lot of things, and we cannot completely deny. But there should be some kinds of dialogue with choreo-politics also. Now coming back to this JNU, idea of the JNU and what happened exactly in JNU, how exactly I see. So for example, like both things are started with the, like if you have heard, like many of you must have heard, we have started like a series on nationalism. Lecture series on nationalism, and that was like considered like one of the remarkable series that okay, how JNU is protesting in a different way, in a kind of alternative way, where like they are protesting through the lecture series. It's a fantastic idea. In fact, many people came, then many intellectuals came, and they have tried to see freedom through different lenses. But exactly what has happened that now, if I am reflecting back on that movement, that time I was also celebrating that time also romanticizing, that time also very much part of the things, and if that things happen, then I will be part of that. But what has happened that largely this whole idea of the nationalism was filmed within the nationalist framework. So okay, you are this nationalist, I am more nationalist. So whole discourse become like, okay, no, you don't know nationalism, don't teach us nationalism, we know nationalism. So unless and then what happened that largely, increasingly if you are thinking, then Kashmiri community, Northeast community, and some I would say also like larger Dalit community, they like became a part of this movement because they felt that no, they are again discussing everything within the same nationalist framework. So that has been, I would say, one of the criticism of the JNU movement, and I think one of the interesting, very interesting talk was by Gita, where she has questioned this idea, and she has questioned this idea in a very quite interesting way, because you are keep giving this slogan of Jai Hind Lal Salam. And I just would like to go back to this idea of the Jai Hind Lal Salam, because I remember that one Kabir Kalamans was in JNU, they were like performing in JNU, they were doing the kinds of like, they were singing songs in JNU, and what happened that they were giving this slogan, Jai Hind Lal Salam. And this had happened, I would say, 2 years back, and what were the kinds of like how JNU had changed. So that time, Jai Hind, then when they will say Jai Hind, then one sort of people will say Jai Hind. And when they will say Lal Salam, then one section will say Lal Salam. So you could see that within the same, like same space, you have like a two divided crowd, two divided communities are sitting together, but definitely a kind of dialogue is happening, but dialogue is just not in context of dialogue where you can have an exchange. There still remains a kind of very much polarized context. Suddenly you see this like when this whole thing started, then one day I am getting like even like I mean you see that Umar and Anivan both got released. Then suddenly you see that all the students having a Ambedkar like a picture, all are walking with a Ambedkar like things. Almost all are walking. So how you read this? Is it like your conviction, like a kind of like are you convinced with that politics? And this is becoming a part of your stance of the new politics. And same way, therefore, I see that one is that JNU many times we say that okay, JNU has won the battle. Okay, but one interesting statement that has come from Abu Jayati, where he said that no, we have won the moral battle. When he is saying that we have won the moral battle, then he is making, I would say, very remarkable statement, and I think it has a lot of truth in that, because we have won the moral battle, because now even JNU is just speaking the language of nationalism. So you are not saying that okay, we want, you are, so if you are taking like Tagore, if you are taking Gandhi, those things, this is no, nationalism is a bizarre concept, we cannot go with nationalism. So you are not criticizing nationalism as an ideology, you are saying that we are more nationalist. So that was one of my criticisms when I am reflecting back, then I am able to realize that kind of things. Same thing if I say that SC, what happened in SC? JNU won the battle, but what happened in JNU? I will say the failure of SC is also a failure of JNU. Because whole premise was started with Urmimala and things. So where the movement has happened, why SC failed and why it won? And if in JNU, I will ask that if suppose that we had kinds of very nationalism kinds of framework and things, and therefore like many faculties or students came together. Suppose context would have been like caste, or context would have been region, one region. Then would JNU have the same response? So I believe like many questions, and I think it's a good idea that if you base on questions, then I think to have like a more exchange. And so this idea, this whole like if you are thinking about slogan, and I think how you whether slogan is a performance. Whether you can take performance as slogan, because as an activist, many times I think that if you can say like you are saying that no, your slogan is very good performance, then I'm seeing the whole reduction of that politics, reduction of certain kind of my commitment. So I think we need to seriously think about this like no, performative framework, performance framework and things, and we need to critically see this lens. So for example, I will come back to this our Kanhaiya things that so भारत से नहीं, ये भारत से नहीं, भारत में आज़ादी चाहिए. So I think then the whole question of nationality, whole question of many things gets quite displaced, and I think definitely we have witnessed that moment. Definitely we have like resisted many things. At the same time, I will also accept that we have also held in on many fronts. So that is also my own self-critical and criticism that I can say.
Thank you for the invitation. Urmimala, who sadly is not here, but she's the one who kindly asked me to speak. And after these two presentations, really very little do I have to add to the extraordinary observations made. Just going back to those months, which are actually very recent, February season, say, probably sometime in March, after more than a month and a half of the JNU agitation, there was one particular march planned for outside JNU. I can be heard.
ये माइक चाहिए, माइक लगा दीजिए प्लीज।
So one of those days, sometime after a month or so after the agitation started, there was a march planned from Jantamata to Jantamata from India's. So a lot of us were coming from JNU. I teach there, like Brahma. There were several buses, 8 or 10 buses full of students, teachers. And I think it was around 3 o'clock that we were supposed to start the march towards Choudhury. But we got on the bus, and our bus reached more or less in time, around 3 o'clock. And there were a lot of people from outside who were participating, waiting for the rest of the JNU students and teachers to arrive. But it took a very long time, and they were not really, they were not there. And up to the point we were joking that, the usual JNU delay, JNU really doesn't have a notion of normal time in the rest of the city and stuff like that. But only up to a point. Then we realized that actually something else was going on. We thought, well, some of us had reached in time. But what was happening was the Delhi police was actually blocking these buses. The rest of these buses, the Delhi police was getting them to go to some other routes, and they had actually reached somewhere, instead of Mandihas, they had gone off towards the Yamuna side, Ramsingh. Yeah, the police were diverting these buses, so they were really disorienting the entire time frame of the march. And it was getting more and more delayed. They were pretty late, and we were still waiting, all of us, obviously we were waiting. We were slightly worried and also thinking of what's going to happen. So there was that, what Ram very correctly indicated, there is a kind of disorientation, uncertainty. So fear, uncertainty, not fear at this point so much, but definitely a lot of uncertainty and tactical sort of thinking of what shall we do in case they are arrested or they are detained somewhere or something happens. Anyway, at some point in all of this collective uncertain reflection, the buses arrive. And there's a moment, one of such moments that gets grafted in one's memory. And it's so recent, it seems like a permanent memory now. So I was there, and all of us were there standing on the sidewalk. And these buses arrived, and at some impossible to locate at a certain moment, people are getting down from the front door of the bus. They're not getting down. What we are seeing is actually the emergence of a certain sort of fist in the hand, and one after the other, and the other, like forming a chain and a kind of a bouquet of fists. And along with it, of course, we hear a sound. But again, not a random sound, but a sound in a certain rhythm, eventually forming a word which is, of course, AZADI. And then AZADI and AZADI and AZADI, it rolls up and up and up, and then we see the entire group of students and teachers, mostly students, coming down, before we know it, the mass has begun, and all of this uncertainty in that moment has vanished, and complete change of mood and spirit and enthusiasm has taken over all of us. And this is the reality I can myself testify. It happened. With all the problems, all the difficulties, all the structural shortcomings, which I will also join in criticizing as about Sarkar along. But this moment happened. Now, the thing is, I don't want to talk about this moment beyond this point. Now, the thing is, it is around a particular word which has now become emblematic in terms of the word's meaning, but also its resonance, which is AZADI. And JNU more or less has sort of condensed in the sound and the charge of that word. Both in terms of enthusiasm, the rest of it, also more intensely probably, the opposite of enthusiasm, which is hatred. So hatred of JNU and the enthusiasm along with JNU, it all comes to that word, AZADI. So I think it's time to look at this word again, very clearly. What is the meaning of it? So, on 9th February, it seems, slogans were shouted, which Meghna spoke of during the program, about which again there is a lot of forensic controversy, videos and all that, thanks to our wonderful media. A lot of forensic controversy, but then apart, suppose we kind of take it that something happened on 9th February, which again gets condensed in that word, image, sound, AZADI, but not in some general sense of AZADI, but in a very specific, historical, real, regional, you take Brahma's fantastic point, regional reference to AZADI, which is Kashmir. So something seems to have happened on 9th February, which was an echo or a repetition or an affirmation in solidarity with AZADI in Kashmir. No, that is for real. Something. What it was, who did it, what, all that forensic controversy is for ZTV, not for me. But something is there in our field of vision and our field of hearing and our field of imagination. But given that, between 9th February and what has followed up to now, things are the same and things have drastically changed in and through change in the rest of Pakistan. What is the same? Let's first look at what has changed. Now, initially what happened was, first 2-3 days there was hardly anything, and then there was a complaint made by some other organization within JNU, following which an arrest was made of President Maria on a particular charge, which is the sedition charge, which of course is a very tricky charge with a long history going into colonial period, British colonial period. About that I won't really talk, but it's I think very important to keep that in mind. Now, once Kanhaiya gets arrested, even then, no one's really talking of the point from where this whole thing started. 9th February. It's, like I said, it's regional, which is nothing to do with JNU. JNU is the site of its repetition. In whatever form. That form I'm not going to get into. But something to do with that condensed AZADI in Kashmir. That is where it all starts. Nothing to do with JNU, and yet in JNU. But by the time it reaches the moment of the arrest, even then actually, nothing is being said about it. Just felt that way. Whether in support or in opposition. Whatever happened on 9, and in between those silence, some organizations or people in an organization made a police complaint, police acted upon it, and sedition charges are prima facie raised against the president of JNUSA, and he is arrested. And after that, media of course raises the question in an extremely virulent, violent way. That we know. That's a monotonous violence carrying on up to now. But it did. It started up that. In that sense, the Azadi question didn't come up in JNU immediately after it came up in JNU, on 9 February. Post 9 February, it actually went outside and then ricocheted back. Flew back into JNU. And it flew back again in a very interesting and dramatic moment when Kanhaiya got bailed. And in between, of course, there were glimpses of the Azadi question, the Azadi slogan, the sound, you want to call it performance, whatever. The word here is not so important. But whatever, it is in Kanhaiya, the evening Kanhaiya, the night Kanhaiya got bailed and he came back to speak, that he, as a really remarkable sort of student leader, any leader actually, re-articulated, re-enunciated that slogan fast. But when he did it, and the way it got carried by the entire congregation, we were all there were by thousands of people there, it changed. And then, of course, that famous quotation in Kanhaiya becomes the central point. Azadi Bharat se nahi Bharat mein. So not just that statement, but the slogan apparently also changes its content in a very interesting way, in a very serious way, because Kanhaiya doesn't merely say Bharat se and Bharat mein, he also qualifies it, extends it by actually substantiating what does it mean by Bharat mein, and he points to all the terrible injustices of the country, Brahmanvad se Azadi, Hindvad se Azadi. There are countless things in this rotten society according to him. And he says, and it repeats and repeats with that same enthusiasm which I myself was brought up. But it changes. Because somewhere both these things were not happening. On the one hand, a certain sort of restriction on the freedoms of saying Azadi, on the meaning of freedom of Azadi, where it was as if everything but Kashmir. No one said it explicitly, Kanhaiya never said it explicitly, but it was implied. Everything but Kashmir. Everything but the question of the nation's integrity and sovereignty and stuff like that. And then very seriously, 1,000 hypotheses and extremely urgent hypotheses on Azadi. So, as I said, Azadi from the tyranny of society, which is Brahmanic, which is patriarchal, which is, very correct, is rotten. But not Kashmir. Now, of course, we are within JNU, its own little temporal duration of hardly 7 days, 10 days, whatever. We are at a very interesting and a very strange crossroads. What starts with Kashmir repeats Kashmir and excludes Kashmir. And everything else is there in a full-blooded, enthusiastic, with raised fists and unafraid voices. Yet not Kashmir. No one is responsible for this in terms of one person, whether it's Kanhaiya, this fantastic person who speaks in such a unique kind of flair, or anybody else. But the point is, this is an objective presentation of, if you want to call it performance, that's up to you, but objective presentation of facts as we see them and hear them within that little period. And in a way, from then to now, that is the framework in which things have got treated. The entire point that Brahma is making, the critical thing that I think is so important, I really am grateful for Prakash that he has brought this up as an act of self-criticism. I like to participate in it. Is exactly this. That all of this, and yet, with the nation as a framework, we are better nationalists. Not more or less, but better. So there is a kind of moralizing of the nation, but the moment the nation is moralized, Arun Jaitley actually wins the moral victory on the other side. But the other side is moralizing by saying they're the better nation. But it's the ones who raise the stakes who win the victory. So that is very clear. And in a way that slogan itself, and it's, but at the same time it is not so one-dimensional. The fact is, when you say Brahmanvad se azadi, Lingvad se azadi, एक चीज से आज़ादी और आज़ादी, it is actually raising the absolutely micro level heroic struggles of the people of this country. The most difficult struggles of the people of this country. Corporate path se आज़ादी, foreign funding se आज़ादी, Ford Foundation se आज़ादी. Absolutely. It is raising absolutely the day-to-day struggles, not just of people as working people in the factories, but working people, the artists, the artisans, the people whose crafts are being commodified and sold, and they are both being glorified and being impoverished at the same time. The entire economy, which is at the behest of a certain kind of globalization and a kind of fait accompli that there is nothing else but a global market. All of that say Azadi, and yet not Kashmir. तो ये दोनों चीज़ें जो साथ हो रही है जीवन में, ये मुझे लगता है बहुत ज़्यादा अजीब लेकिन बहुत सटीक. So nothing here is caricature. It's all very serious. It's all very real. And a kind of structure is emerging that the conditions for speaking about unconditional freedom is to cut out one essential exception we have to make. Interestingly, everything starts from that exception, which is Kashmir. And of course it will. And of course it will. What is the surprise in that? It will happen in JNU, it will happen in different parts of the country, and it will happen in Kashmir, because that is a volatile reality, a bleeding wound, a raw, vibrant wound for the last 60 years, which is bleeding and is refusing, no one's bothered to do anything about it. It's as simple as that. So it is bound to happen. That's the reality. And the reality where it's the most wounded will produce the most violent kind of a reaction. That is obvious. That is what happens in JNU. JNU, it can happen anywhere. JNU took it. That's it. And people can, because it's JNU, with a history of a certain kind of leftism, certain kind of intellectual glamorization of leftism located within JNU, which today has become, for particularly a rightist regime, both a symbol of something which is extremely anachronistic on the one hand, but also extremely, it's a kind of stumbling block at the level of this development ideology of the government, and also the corporate ideology of this government. So for all those reasons, JNU was picked up. But the fact is, it can happen anywhere in a society of which Kashmir is a part and not part. Of a country where Kashmir is and is not. You want to deny it, you deny it. The wound is not going to go. It is going to look at you from where it's bleeding. You do whatever. You arrest, you shoot, you shout, you throw the media at human beings and at each other. Nothing's going to change. It's as simple. But of course, what's simple is the most complicated. If that is the case, then JNU, with this raising of the performance of performativity of AZADI, actually in its own history produces this, in a very short period, this kind of a development. But that is not my point. You see, my point is something which builds from it. That's what I wanted to say. The point is that the slogan from Kanhaiya onwards to everyone, all of us, whoever's leading the slogan or shouting the slogan, and that moment when I was at, and all of us at Jantar Mantar or at Mandi House heard this congregation marching down rhythmically as a kind of choreo, police of politics, and because of that, but both I think in some ways saying Azadi. They were not saying Kashmir Azadi. They were saying the same Azadi which was started with Kanhaiya's fantastic movement, which was Brahmanvad se Azadi or se Azadi. Not Kashmir. And yet, my point is, At every moment when you say Azadi, you are saying Kashmir. You are not saying it, but you are saying it. There is no other explanation for its real power. That is it. Unless the absence of Kashmir is a real force in what you're saying, then the force of saying the other things doesn't come. Because everyone knows from where Azadi starts and where Azadi ends in terms of its both historical and its performative origins, which is in Kashmir. You can defer on the historical question. You can even say that it is not a popular mandate of the Kashmiris, and then you have to have a plebiscite. No? You can say whatever, but the fact is the slogan originates historically and possesses its performative resonance, even its theatrical resonance, in and through Kashmir. So even if you say explicitly, I exclude Kashmir and say everything else, I have to say Kashmir. That is what I would call the Indian unconscious. Kashmir is the Indian unconscious. And it's the Indian unconscious that is being performed when we say Azadi. And it's because the unconscious is the most troublesome part of our life. That's why we need to shut the unconscious up. And hence, no shut. But what we shut up is that which speaks the most insistent and the most rhythmically. Because after all rhythm is also a certain kind of pathology. After all, babble is a rhythm. Catatonia is a rhythm. It's a kind of choreo-catatonia, or a catatonic choreography. So there is a pathology which in the repression of Kashmir, the sound, and in the repression, the saying of it, that lies in this Indian unconscious. This Indian unconscious, both sick with Kashmir and sick at the same time because it will not confront Kashmir. In a way, JNU was a living and is a living proof of the Indian unconscious. But of course, I have to say this much, that JNU is also one of the examples of a university. It's only an example because there is HCU, there are other universities in this country, small ones, big ones, which are also places of reflection, places of a certain kind of self-diagnosis, self-excavation, where some people have the courage to try and face their unconscious, however difficult it is. And in a way, these movements, I don't want to make it a clinical kind of a discourse or a clinical way of looking at these things, but in a way, what we say vertical performance or choreology and all these things, choreography, are also the orientations that the bodies are searching for. When we speak of orientation, uncertainties and fear and all those things, we are also searching for orientation in all of this, which is orientation of what? In space and off bodies. And in a way, theatre, I won't say performance, I like the old word theatre. Theatre is a place of trying to find orientation. In a limited, simplified space, theatre is where we try to find a certain kind of orientation. Brecht used to say this. We want to find a simplified model of how is it possible to think in a situation so complicated that it's unthinkable. So India, unconscious and all those things are unthinkable in their complication. But in a kind of theatre, we are able to think about it in a restricted way, but still clearly. So in this sense, universities are also like that. They are theatres of thinking. And in a way, JNU is struggling in both directions. To both be able to make this theatre of thinking come alive in its actual history, in the events of politics that are happening, but at the same time, because events of politics are taking it beyond its university perimeter, and it is going, for instance, the media is the entire country, the entire world in a way, in a virtual sense, is uncontrollable. It is also having to deal with the world. So, the old problem of JNU being an island, kind of romantic utopian idealism, which is so true. In a sense, get a reality shock with everything that I spoke of happened in JNU. Again, to say JNU as a person is a very bad way of doing it, so I'm sorry about that. I don't mean JNU as a person. but it what happens in JNU, through JNU as a site, as a real site. Anyway, so given all of these things, there is this struggle both to preserve this theatre of thinking, which is also the privilege and the pleasure and the courage expected of a university, but also to be able to meet up to the degraded challenge of reality. And hence you have to go to the media and go to Arnab Goswami and take all that degradation. What do you have to do? So both these things are happening, seeing, sawing, and oscillation. But finally, it seems to me, and this is not a point about any artistic point, it is an overall point of the politics of as it is emerging in our country, and the question of JNU is about that. You see, it seems to me that because Kashmir is a real point of fragility, intense fragility in our overall nation's history, and in a very contemporary immediate sense, it is a place of extreme contestation and dispute. It is logical that something volatile, even violent, contested at least, transgressive happens through JNU. So AZADI in a way is a transgressive slogan, through Kashmir. No? It can happen in JNU or anywhere else. It is logical. Like it or not, it's going to happen. No reason. Unless we become a wise society, that then will change. Yeah. Okay, I'm finishing. So now, but as when something starts off from an event, it doesn't mean that what follows from it, what emerges out of it is the same subject. So what emerges from JNU is not necessarily something to do with only a Kashmir self-determination, nation versus its challengers, that kind of an issue or subject. I don't think so. In fact, I think what has emerged from the JNU movement, and it is emerging, is a completely different subject, which indeed brings up the question of Azadi in a comprehensive sense as a social question. So, to put it very briefly and cryptically, what has emerged in JNU is something like a social subject, a sense of social criticism, of which JNU is a part, which means this, which means that JNU as a composition of individuals from communities and castes in our society is equally divided along those lines. And that division has come out as something to be corrected. So, Brahmanwad se Azadi applies as much to JNU as to the rest of society. And that is reflected in the new issues that are coming up in JNU, which deal with the question of equality, question of justice, question of, finally, a new Dalit subject which takes its distance both from the old left, also, if it comes to that, from issues of immediate political, international interests like self-determination. That also is something which is as real as the beginning point was, which was social. This, I think, was the spectrum. Thank you for your patience.
I guess I'm just going to stick to what struck me very strongly, this idea of the unconscious.
Can't hear you.
You want to get down?
No. You can stay on stage. Just this idea of the unconscious and bringing it back to dance. What is our unconscious as dancers? And how do we, the way Kataya says, not from Bharat, but within, not freedom from Bharat, but within Bharat. How do we look at it in terms of dance? How are we sort of seeking freedoms from particular notions? No, instead of seeking them from particular notions, finding them within these notions. So those are things that particularly struck me, and I was wondering if anyone, since we have time for about 2 questions, anyone wants to sort of, what is the word? Bounce off these ideas.
Someone take in the mic. You know, while I was researching for this paper, then I got a chance to look at a lecture by Dr. Hilrich, he's a historian, and the lecture was in 1968 protests that happened across Europe, the students' protests which happened across Europe. So the panel was addressing how there was a sense of utopia and collective dreaming and the will that we are going to go and change something had emerged. While I was in the JNU protest and I was going to the university every day, that was something that kind of struck me there, the collective dreaming and the enthusiasm. I think we lack there somewhere because we are a generation of doubts, I believe, and we have to be able to deal with these doubts. There is of course this sense that we'd like to overthrow certain structures, we want to overthrow classes and we want to overthrow political authorities and things like these. But after overthrowing, we have to be able to think what kind of morality we want to come up with. And that's one question that we as dancers, artists, should think about, like how to think about future. And we have to indulge in that euphoric question. So that's what I have to say.
Actually, I want to add to that this idea of the strike being a moment where if one was to look at the idea of strike within dance, then what does that really mean in dance? Perhaps that's one of the ways to look at what these ruptures in dance have been, these contemporary moments that we speak about. When we speak about Chandra, maybe that is a moment of strike that we talk about. And perhaps this is one of the questions for us to ask, where is the strike in one's work? Where does the dissent lie? Where is the disagreement with what has gone on before is perhaps a very key way to pull these two conversations together.
So I've been thinking about the kind of key themes that have come about in the last few discussions, and we've talked about looking back at history, and then there's also like looking at the body as archive, like as Ranjana said, finding your content within your space as a dancer. And I think both of them are equally important. If we are looking at the politics of dance itself, we can trace it back to say what IPTA was doing and say a film like Bharti Ke Lal and any kind of movement scenes and that is a political history. But then on the other hand, you're talking about a vocabulary for the future. And T.S. Eliot has this beautiful line in his quartets where he says, for yesterday's words belong to yesterday's language and tomorrow's words await another voice. So like how do you talk about what you do not know? And in that sense, to me, that the text you draw from, almost like the Rosetta Stone, is your body. And we need to, I think, question how we have defined certain things. Like even if we look at Chandra's work, and she's talking about your body has to be sexual and political, yes, as a woman, but then what do we define as woman? Is it just like a cisgendered notion of woman? And is it always in relation to the man? Like if she's riding a man, like what about a woman, not even loving another woman, lusting for another woman? So I think constantly reframing the heritage of our politics and where we want to take our politics. If 377 is something that is so out there in our world, and our daily protests are about that, then where does our dance history speak to that?
Yeah, thanks Mandeep, you have reminded Chandralekha work, because when I was reading Chandralekha very recently, then I think many times the work Rustam has ruled. So in that work, many times he's using the term a split. So I think a split, I will read it as a strike in that sense. And he's bringing that sense several times. So if you're reading whole through the book, then you will find this idea of the strike and a striking kinds of. But this has been several times. And one point I have missed, I would like to add. and I think I was so negative about JNU. So, so like when so 2 years back, or I think 3 years back when I started teaching in JNU, then after teaching 1 year, I was quite very getting distracted at why I am teaching. What is the point of teaching? Again, you are bringing reproducing the same thing. They will again go back according to Foucault, it's a liminal phase, and they will become part of the society again. So that question was haunting me several times. In fact, and after that, things had happened that one of my friends left teaching and went to do his own work. Said that there is no point of teaching. But this momentum and whatever has happened in JNU has created a certain kind of hope where I can see in eyes of a student and can get certain kinds of energy now. And that are the kinds of I will say that at least for my personal kinds of things, now at least I think my classes and my relationship with the student in a different sense than what I had earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Ram, Shomu and Meghna.